Okay, so the next thing you want to do is we're going to create another class here, and this looks like what you've been doing since the start of the semester, because this has a main. And so I'm going to give you a minute to go ahead and type this in, and with all of the comments, and your code should end up looking like this. And you want this in the same package as your bank account class. All right, so I have this all set up here, and we're going to just fill this in. And I do know in the bank account class I have yet to put the toString method in because I want to show you something. But this is what you've been doing all along. You've been creating, since the start of the semester, you've been creating pieces of code that look like this. These are sometimes called testers or drivers because they utilize your class by creating objects of that type. So let's do the very first one. We're going to create our bank account object, and I'm going to go back to that slide we had on Scanner so you can kind of remember what we used to do with what we did with classes that were already created for us. So remember, if we were going to use the Scanner class and create an object, we would have a line that looked like this. So we're creating an object called scan, and in this case, we're actually calling the constructor that was written inside the Scanner class. Remember, this was sitting inside our main. So let's go back to our code and implement something that looks like that. So the name of my class is BankAccount, and I'm going to call my object myAccount. And now with the new keyword, this creates or instantiates the object called myAccount by calling the special method called the constructor that you've got written inside your BankAccount class. So this just called, and we're going to go back and take a look at this. This just called this right here. And what this does is it initializes the balance for my account to 0. So let's go ahead and let's skip this one here and come down to deposit $100 in my account. So just like you did with Scanner, and let's go back and look at that slide. So when we wanted to use this object called scan, we used the object and then invoked the methods, and this one happened to be called nextInt, but we used next, we used nextLine. Those methods were all written for us inside this class here. So we're going to do the same with our bank account class. So when we want to deposit $100 in my account, it's my account is the object, and watch what happens when we put the dot notation there. It says, well, you've got something called deposit that you've written inside bank account. So, and it's expecting you to pass it in an amount. So let's pass in $100. So now if we want to display the balance in my account, we're just going to use the system.out. And we'll write out the balance. And we're trying to get our output to resemble what's in the activity. So let's go back and take a look at what our goal. So this is what we want our output to look like after we run the class bank. So I'm working on this line right here. And so let's go back and we'll make our system.out look like that. All right, so I typed in the text there. And now to actually get the balance, we want my account's balance. So you might be tempted to do something like this. Say, oh, well, I just want to get my account's balance. But look what that tells you. It says this isn't visible. And that's because you made bank account's balance private. So you don't want anybody to be able to do this. But you do have a method that returns the balance, and it's called getBalance. Let's let the object use that. So again, let your development environment help you out. Put the dot notation, and then let's use getBalance. And let's see what that gives us now. Okay, so we're ready to run this. we've created our object, we've deposited $100, and now we're going to write out the balance. Hopefully it's $100, and it is. So let's go back and fill in the rest of this code, and then we'll come back in and talk about it a little bit more. So if the object wants to withdraw $25, then the object has a withdraw method. There it is. And it's expecting you to pass in an amount, which is a double. So we want to withdraw $25. And now we want to display the state of my account. And that's where we're going to stop. And I'm going to come back up here because I want to show you something. Okay, if we want to show the state of an object, that's what we're going to use our toString method for. So let's go ahead and invoke toString. It thinks it's there, and it is. And now let's go ahead and run this again. And toString is supposed to show you, the user, the values for all of the instance variables, ideally. But if you don't implement it, it's going to go ahead and use the toString that has already been written for you in a different class, a superclass called object with a capital O. So this hash code is not what you want. So let's go back, and I left that intentionally for us to implement at the end. So let's go back and do that. Okay, I've got a skeleton in here for toString. All right, I've got a skeleton in here for toString, and we want this to display our balance when an object calls it, or whatever the instance variables are for the object. And since balance is money, I'm going to go ahead and get a formatter that will display this when we'll put it into a number format for us. So let's go ahead. We're just returning a string. We're not actually printing anything out at this point. So this will return a string that has the text balance and then the actual balance of the object formatted. So I probably need to add that import statement. So let's go up and do that. And we've got that added in. And now let's go back to our tester and test our code. So as I'm typing this new line of code in down here to implement the toString for my account, that's my object. And I'm going to go ahead and call toString. Since I've got it implemented, that should give me my balance, and we should be all set. Let's go ahead and see if our output looks like it does on the printout, and it does. So we start out with $0 because we called the constructor here, and the constructor sets the balance to 0. We deposited, or my account deposited $100. So the state of the balance is 100. And then we withdrew, my account withdrew $25. And we then at the very end displayed the state using toString of my account. So when you go back and look at the class, notice I have things in the same order as the UML, and that's going to be a good practice. Usually instance variables, there are usually many more than one. All your constructors will go next, and then your other methods. So a couple of conceptual things to think about. Remember, BankAccount is just a template, a blueprint. You don't actually execute BankAccount, run it. You're going to use it in Bank or in your tester. Just like we use Scanner, just like we use Random, those classes. You're going to create an object of that type, and then that object can invoke all the methods that you have defined inside your class. And only those methods that you have defined. So let's look at this here. If I tried to deposit, or my account tried to deposit, and you put 2 T's there, it's going to give you an error because there is no deposit with that spelling defined in your bank account. Same thing, these are methods, so if I take the parentheses off of this, it's not going to execute either. So a couple things just to think about when you're starting out writing classes. And you're going to want to save this code so you can build on it in the next activity.